Julie from I Can Crochet That, and today we are learning the Tunisian smock stitch. Now this is for my Ethan crochet throw, so we are doing it with two colors, a cream color and a mandala striped, self-striping yarn, which I absolutely love. If you've seen any of my patterns, you know that I'm a big fan of self-striping yarns. So for today, I'm using just a long Afghan hook because I'll only have 16 loops on my hook. But for when you're making a blanket, you're going to need to use a Tunisian hook with a very long cord like this, and it has a stopper on the end. So use that for the blanket. We're just using this for the example. So for the smock stitch, it is an even number of chains, and today I had chained 16. As always, for Tunisian, you turn it over and you'll see these little back bumps. We go into the second back bump from the hook. So first bump, second. Go in the bump, pull up a loop, and you do that all the way across, and this is how you start the foundation chain. So for this pattern, like I said, we are using two different colors, and I'm going to be changing the color before the return pass. I will show you what I mean by that here in just a moment. So continuing in the back bumps all the way across. And I will have 16 loops on my hook. Now, to change colors before the return pass, for a regular Tunisian return pass, you chain one, yarn over, pull through 2 loops all the way across. So to change colors, we're going to change it during our chain 1, just like that. And that's how you change colors. And this one just stays here until you're coming back around, and you'll see how we grab that color again. So starting with color B, chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, all the way across. And that is a Tunisian return pass. My yarn is splitting a little bit because I've been working this yarn over today. Okay, now we have our foundation chain with the 2 colors. So for the Tunisian smock stitch, it is a 2-row repeat. So this will be considered row 1. We will not go in this first vertical bar because this is considered the first stitch. So we leave that alone, and we go into the second vertical bar. Now for the smock stitch, row 1, we're going to do Tunisian simple stitch 2 together, or TSS 2 together, which is putting your loop in the putting your hook through the first 2 vertical bars and pulling up a loop. And that is the first stitch of the smock stitch. Now the rest of it, you gotta pay attention, because instead of yarning over like we do in regular crochet and Tunisian crochet, we're going to yarn under. So for the first stitch, it's just TSS 2 together. For the second one, it's yarn under. You have to hold it with your finger for it to stay there and go through the next 2 vertical bars. Continuing to hold it, we pull up a loop. And this is the yarn that you held on there. So do it again, yarn under, hold it with your index finger, go under the next 2 vertical bars, and pull up a loop while still holding onto that yarn. Yarn under, hold, go through the next 2 vertical bars, yarn over, pull up a loop, still holding that on there. So you can see how it's kind of taken shape here, and it's pushing these smock stitches, or these stitches together to create like a little upside down V. So let's do that again. We do this all the way across. Yarn under, next 2 vertical bars, still holding on, pull up a loop. Yarn under, next 2 vertical bars, still holding, pull up a loop. Yarn under, next 2 vertical bars, and pull up a loop. Now you can see we are at the very last stitch. This is the last Tunisian stitch. And for row 1, the first row, when you get to that very last stitch, you will yarn under and go through the side. It's a little tricky, the first row for changing colors, but yarn under, go through the side, and pull up a loop. And that is your first row. So with this first row, you sometimes have to kind of start pulling on the yarn a little bit to get it to tighten up, but it all kind of tightens up on its own a little bit. But just tighten that a little bit before you start your return pass. So the return pass we're going to do with the cream. So chain 1, you can kind of tighten this all here a little bit. Chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way across. So yarn out of the way here. Pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now this stitch, as you can see, it's a little tricky. It's so easy to drop stitches on this stitch. And after you get the hang of it, when you do accidentally drop stitches, you'll figure out how to get them back without having to undo all of your work. All right, that is row 1 of the smock stitch. Okay, row 2, we start, again, not this first vertical bar, because that's considered the one on your hook. We go into the second vertical bar. For row 2, we do 1 Tunisian simple stitch, regular way, and 1 TSS, Tunisian simple stitch, 2 together, the regular way. No yarn under. We don't yarn under until the next. Okay, so TSS 1, TSS 2 together, and then yarn under. Now with these, you'll see that this loop right here of the next stitch, it can hide a little bit. So you gotta sometimes kind of grab it out of there. So yarn under, go under the next 2 vertical bars and pull up the loop, holding that on there. Yarn under, hold it, next 2 vertical bars, pull up a loop. And when you pull this, as you can see, that does try to hide just a little bit. Yarn under, next 2 vertical bars, pull up a loop, yarn under, next 2 vertical bars, and pull up a loop. One good thing about doing 2 colors is it makes it a little easier to see that stitch that can kind of hide. So yarn under, pull up a loop until you get to the last 2 stitches. So this is 1 stitch, and this is the last Tunisian stitch, the side stitch. So we're going to yarn under for the last one, go through 1 vertical bar, and for the side stitch, we're just going to do regular, no yarning under, just a regular stitch. Kind of pull that a little bit. All right, it's time to switch colors again. So those are our 2 rows, and we're going to repeat those 2 rows for the whole pattern. So we're going to do several of these so you can kind of get the hang of it. So with the new color, chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, all the way across. Like I said, easy to drop stitches. Okay, so now we're ready to repeat row 1 again, which is not in the first vertical bar, but in the next 2. So a regular TSS 2 together, under the first 2 bars, pull up a loop, then yarn under the next 2 vertical bars, pull up a loop, yarn under, next 2, pull up a loop, all the way across until the last stitch. Now we're at the last stitch, which is the side stitch, yarn under, go through the side stitch. Time to change colors again. Chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2, 2, 2, all the way across. Now, as you can see, this stitch is starting to curl. It does curl a little bit, but on the Ethan blanket, we do a simple border around it, which helps with the curling. All right, so we're ready for the row repeat. Row 2 is not the first vertical bar, but the second one. 1 simple stitch, and then not yarning under or over, Tunisian simple stitch 2 together, and then we begin the yarn under, simple stitch 2 together. Oops, let's do that again. Yarn under, simple stitch 2 together, yarn under, look for that little hidden loop there, hidden stitch, 2 together, yarn under, holding on to it on the hook, 2 together. I keep slipping my stitches. Yarn under, 2 together, all the way across until you get to the last 2 stitches, this stitch and the side stitch. For the last stitch, yarn under, and go through 1, just 1 simple, and then into your side stitch. And as you can see, it's starting to take shape. So it does take a little bit of practice, but I'm telling you, once you get the stitch, you will fall in love with it. All right, now we're just gonna do several rows. I'm not gonna talk, we'll just play some pretty music and you can see what it looks like with a few more rows done. rows of the Tunisian smock stitch. It's pretty, isn't it? And with the two colors, it really makes it pop, makes it stand out. And you can do, for the Ethan blanket, I did gray in a mandala, and also this cream colored in mandala. So you can kind of experiment with different color combinations. So to bind this off, to finish it off, once you've finished your blanket, we do the Tunisian slip stitch, and we're not going to go through 2. For the slip stitch, we just go under 1 and slip stitch. Under next vertical bar, slip stitch. And you just do that all the way across to give it a nice edge. And you want to make sure that you're binding off with the same color that you started with. So we started off with the cream, so we're going to bind off with the cream. And this just gives it a nice edge. It also sets it up for us to be able to do the border stitches. And then to finish it off, go in the side stitch and slip stitch. And there. Tunisian smock stitch. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial, and I hope you have as much fun making the blanket as I did designing it and also making it. So until next time, bye.